Hey guys, I'm Chef Dean Max. Welcome back to the kitchen. Today we've got a little fall special, kind of French, kind of homey. It's beautiful. A roasted beef stew. Okay? You can call it beef bourguignon. You can call it whatever you want. I don't care. It's basically beef and red wine, and really a lot of nice accoutrements to that. You're going to want to stay for this. Click subscribe if you're not doing that already. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video and ring that bell, and I'll send you new things I have coming up. So stay around for some beautiful beef and red wine. Hey guys, we're back. I've got this beautiful piece of kind of like a top chuck. You could use short rib, you could use other different kind of tougher meats, right? The ones that need to be braised longer. Don't make this with a center cut ribeye or New York strip or tenderloin, for goodness sake. You want to make this with a really fatty, well marbled piece of cut from the shoulder, from the leg of the beef. You could sub in lamb if you wanted to, lamb leg, something like that, or lamb shoulder if you like lamb. But we've got a nice steak here, beef steak. With this, I'm just going to cut into some working chunks for me that I want to kind of serve the beef with. So later we don't have to kind of shred it or anything. I want these kind of pieces like this to break apart in there on their own. So they're kind of this whole steak I'm cutting into half here like this. You can see got that big piece of marbling there. I don't want to mess that up. I'm going to cut it here, trim around it, maybe like cut it like this, right? And have these nice chunks. That fat is going to be beautiful. It's going to render. We'll probably end up skimming some of that fat off towards the end. But this is going to be beautiful flavor it's going to add to this dish. So these nice big chunks like this, you see how I'm doing this? Not in like small little bite-sized chunks. These are bigger chunks. They're going to cook down when you have this in your stew, and they're going to be beautiful at the end, and they'll be super tender. So you'll be able to kind of eat them with a fork or a spoon anyway. Now, with this, I want to cover these nice with salt. So I put a nice heaping amount of salt on there. That's going to be the major part of my salt for this dish is going to be on this meat. And then later, okay, now I'm going to put black pepper. Black pepper, white pepper, either one. I like this black pepper though, freshly ground. Okay, now I've got a pan here. And in my jar, I have some ghee. Now, if you want to make ghee, you can click up here, and I can teach you how to do that in this recipe on how to make ghee. But basically, ghee is like, it's basically butter that's been melted down and separated from its milk solids. So there's nothing to burn. This is all oil. So it's all butter. It's kind of, it's oil from the butter. It's just pure oil. There's no buttermilk in that. So with this, I want to just put a few spoons. Why do I use this? Because you could cook it at a higher temperature, and it's going to give this a nice flavor. You could also use beef fat. I could take those chunks of that fat off, put them in here first, and render the fat down. That's another way to do it. So with this, you can see I've put this in. Now, if you don't have that, you could use canola oil. You could use a grapeseed oil would be the best probably. You wouldn't want to just use butter because we want to cook this hot to get nice sear on it. And so we need a hotter oil for that. So I'm letting this heat up. You can see how that's heating up. While I do that, I'm going to show you. For the liquid in this recipe, I'm not using a stock. I'm just going to use the flavor from the meat because most of the time you guys don't have these stocks at home. So I've got some tomatoes. These are little cherry tomatoes like this. I'm going to put a little water in there, probably half full. Actually, maybe full, okay? Blend it with the tomatoes, and that's gonna give us a tomato water. Okay, this is getting hot, so let me go ahead and put some in here. You wanna be very careful when you do this, right? Because the splattering is not fun on your skin, okay? It's a little overcrowded, but I'm going to stir it around and make sure we get some good color on this. So let me wash my hands and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back from washing my hands and I've pureed up my tomato. So you guys can see, that's just tomato water. That's going to be my stock. I like using fresh tomato water like that instead of using like tomato paste and something like this. I like the freshness in it. It's cooking a long time, so it's going to be wonderful anyway. Okay? You can see I'm going to start stirring these around. I want these to get seared up a little bit. Okay? We're going to let this continue to cook in here. Don't worry, we're not going to overcook this beef. I want to let that sear up nice. Once that sears up, gets a little caramelization going on the bottom of this pan, that's when we're going to want to deglaze it. While we're doing that, I'm going to talk to you about the other vegetables that we have. I've got parsnips here. This is a parsnip. Parsnip is one of those I would try to find if you can. You could sub in some celery root if you don't have parsnip. That might be another good option for you. And I want to cut them all the same size. So here on the end you can see I've peeled them just like a carrot. Just treat them like a carrot. I cut it in half. There's a little piece, right? And I just dice it up, right? Now this piece on this end is a little fatter, so I'm going to have to cut it in half, lay it down, and then I'm going to cut it into probably thirds, like this. See that? We're cooking this stew for a long time, so we don't have to cook these. We don't have to have these baby cuts of vegetables because they're going to have plenty of time to cook. Plus, they're going to get smaller as they grow, as they cook in there. I mean, here I've got 3 different style of onions here. Let me move this, and I'll move this here, and you can see what I have. I've got regular onions, 1 onion. I've got some shallots. Shallots are, I had a couple laying around, so I'm going to add this to this. And I have a leek. If you're going to skip one of these, I would skip the shallots. I love the shallots in there, but a lot of times you don't have those at home. But you should buy a leek for this. And while you're buying a leek, buy a shallot too. You could, yes, just go with leeks. You could just go with onions. But, you know, there's not a kind of a written law that you have to do that. It's just going to add this beautiful flavor. So leeks have their own specific oniony flavor. So that's why I add them like this. So you can see I just cut them in half. You just want to make sure they're really clean, right? And I've just chopped those like this, okay? I don't worry about cutting them, mincing them up really small. I want this kind of fall stew to be hearty, okay? You could, eat this all winter long. So with the shallots, I just cut them in half. I come in half again, and I'm just going to cut it like this. I'm not cutting these into like these baby minces that you see like a lot of times people are cutting into a really small mince. That works when you're eating it raw. You're putting on something raw like that, or vinaigrette, things like that. It could work. But for this stew, we're just going to cut them into these, kind of thin slices. But they're going to cook and get nice flavor and scatter throughout this dish. So every bite's going to have a little piece of shallot in there. Okay, like this. Okay, so like basically 2 shallots for that big 2-pound piece of meat. I have 1 onion. Now the onion, I'm just going to slice it into 3 slices like that and come back here. I'm not going to do this perfect dice because it's not needed in this. I like the bigger chunks of onion for myself in the stew. So like this, okay? You can see. So let's watch that again. Cut the onion in half, cut it straight down into probably 5 cuts. They cut it back again small like this. So we get these little kind of wedges of onion, okay? Now our onion's all ready to go and saute, okay? Last would be, I've got some garlic. I've got about 3 or 4 garlic cloves sliced here. I've got carrot. These are all the classics. Onion, celery, carrot, right? So I've got carrot here. I'm just going to peel the carrots, cut those in half, cut those in half again so I get these little quarter strips like this. And then I'll go down and I'll cut chunks of that. Okay? And I have basically 2 big parsnips, 2 big carrots, 4 or 5 garlic cloves sliced. I've got the onion, the 2 shallots, and the leek. And over here I've got one bunch of celery. The celery, you just want to cut it down the center like this, and then just chop it back like that, okay? And you can see I have it right here, like a whole bunch cut. Next would be mushrooms. Let's check our beef now. The beef is starting to boil in its own juice a little bit because there's so much liquid in there. And you've seared up nicely as well. So at this point, what I'm going to do is grab a plate. Where's my plate? There it is. Okay, I'm going to grab a plate and I'm going to put this seared beef to the side. And I'm going to, whoops, shit. I dropped a piece of meat on the ground. Good thing the dog's not around. She'd eat that up quick. Here we go. Now, I'm going to let that water in there kind of cook out, the water from the beef, and then the fat in there is going to be fine. I'm going to pick up this piece of meat and I'm going to wash it. If you drop something on the ground like that, you don't have to throw it away. You just have to wash it nicely and then back in there to go. Now, you can hear this is kind of simmering up like that. It's nice, right? At this point, I'm going to put my garlic in there. Let me do that. Okay? While the garlic and that juice from the beef and the ghee, that butter fat, or your oil if you add oil in it, that's fine. It's cooking. It's going to bring out that flavor. I'm going to put a little bit more salt in there. Okay? And I'm going to let this cook and toast. Okay, now, one of the things I do a lot when I'm cooking is I don't add a roux or flour to thicken sauces. Well, I would probably, if you guys want to do this really healthy, don't add the flour at this point, and just later on when it's done, take some of the vegetables and puree it up to create extra body. I'm going to make this kind of more classic in feel, and the old French classic would be to put a couple tablespoons of flour in there at this point. So this is almost making like a little quick roux with the garlic in there, that flavor of the garlic, okay? And then I want to mix this around, and I'm going to let that cook for a second. I'm going to add a little bit more in there. Let me add a little bit more of my ghee. Now ghee, the other good thing about ghee is it stays in your refrigerator forever pretty much. Like I said, it's like making brown butter, but you don't brown the butter that much. And check out the recipe to learn how to do that. Okay, now here, that's going to start to burn on here if I don't get something going quick, right? So what I want to do is get my onions going. The garlic's already toasted. I'll put the onions in there next, like this. Okay, let me get these cooking around. And the onions will start to leak out some of their liquid. So will the celery. Let's put the celery in there. The parsnips and the carrots, they don't really have that. They have liquid in there, but it doesn't leach out the same way. So I'm just going to put those in to saute and let them wilt a little bit. And then in a couple minutes, we're going to deglaze this, so stay with me. Okay, now that these have kind of cooked down a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and deglaze it with my wine. For me, I just want to use a nice red wine blend, you know, like a cab blend, a dry blend is best, like a dark and hearty blend is going to be the best for you. You don't have to use extremely expensive wine, but just don't use just rock gut either. And you can see the wine in there. For this, I want to use probably half a bottle because I want it to have a really great kind of wine dimension to it. I'm going to add my carrots in at this point. I'm going to add my parsnips in at this point. Okay? And I'm going to let this wine cook down for a few minutes, okay? So, I'm going to add some bay leaf. I've got some bay leaves here. I've got 1, 2, 3. These are little ones, so it's like, I put like, 4 or 5 little tiny ones. If you have bigger leaves, you can put 2 or 3. But that's perfect for that. And then I'm going to take some of my parsley here. I have some beautiful parsley, a bunch of parsley. I'm going to take these end pieces and I'm going to chop at the root end here. And you can see this is where the heavier stem is, right? Even though I pulled the heavy stem off. I'm going to keep this beautiful bunch there for later. When it comes out, I'll put fresh in. But this stemmy part, we're going to cook that in there with this stew. Okay? All right? So, let me let this cook for a second. Let this kind of wine reduce down for a bit, and then we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. The wine is cooked down, you guys, and I'm going to just pour in my meat here at this point. All the juice any juice that's still in there that's settled, don't forget to put that in there with it, okay? And then I'm going to put my tomato water. If you have a beef stock, you want to put beef stock in, by all means, put that in. You know, normally I would put a chicken or veal stock or a stock with bone, marrow in it would be nice. It's going to give it nice texture, right? And then, the last thing I'm going to do is I have these mushrooms. I'm just going to halve them actually. So I have one package of mushrooms, just button mushrooms. They've been cleaned, they've been washed. I'm just going to cut the stem flush. I'm not going to pick the stem fully out. I'm just going to cut it flush like that. You see, cut it in half. Now you could just leave these whole. Sometimes in a stew like this, I just like to leave them in bigger chunks. I don't like to cut them really small. Okay, so oops, I got a little bit of mushroom on there, mushroom dirt. Mushrooms hanging out in the dirt, they're hard to get clean, right? All right, so that's our last ingredient. Okay, we've got enough salt in there now to cook it, which we put salt on the beef and I put a little bit in when I was sauteing the vegetables. So that should be enough to at least braise with it. Of course, we're going to probably have to season it when it's done. Now, at this point, we're going to put a lid on it. I'm going to wait for this to boil. Once this comes to a boil, I don't want to boil it. I just want to bring it to a boil. Once I bring it to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, and I'm going to let it sit on that simmer for probably about an hour and a half. Okay, but I'm going to give you an exact time when I'm done. So I'll see you back in a little bit. Okay guys, we're back. It took about an hour of simmering to get that meat super tender. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Let me pull this up. You see that bubbling like that? It's beautiful. So this dish, wow, look at the color on this, you guys. Look at that. It's gorgeous. You got big chunks of vegetables. Right? So with this, oh man, you can just put some meat in there. You got wonderful vegetables with that too. Put that all on top. That looks fantastic, right? Now I've got some chopped parsley here. I'm just going to drizzle a little of that around. I put just a little pinch of fresh salt on it. And that's it. Wow, look at that, you guys. Super beautiful. I mean, this dish, the broth in this, like if you take a look at this broth, the broth is beautiful. It's not watery. It's actually like has a little body to it. Again, if you want to make this thick and creamy, you could add a little cream to it. You could take a couple spoonfuls of the vegetables without the meat, put it in a blender, and a little heavy cream and blend that up and add this to it, and it's going to give it really nice body. So it'll give it almost a creaminess to it and a richness. So you can do that instead of adding the flour, or you can just leave it brothy like this. It's fantastic. I hope you guys enjoy it. Leave me comments and questions, and I'm glad to kind of give you guys any answers I can. That's perfection. That flavor of that meat with that red wine comes together. Beef and red wine. It's a marriage made in heaven. So you guys try it out and let me know if you have any problems with it or if you just liked it. Send me a comment. I'll see you in the kitchen soon. I'm Chef Dean Max.